firefighters and police officers, they're tactical athletes. So they need a certain level of fitness to be able to do their job. So when you're a dietitian, like that's all well and good, but like if they're not fit, they might not be able to do their job. So there's absolutely a role for dietitians in police and fire. It's just not very well known, or really it's a very new part of the field.
Do you ever have so many questions and no one to ask, so they're just wasting away on Google searches you'll forget about in an hour or so?
We had that same problem, and that's why we created the RD2B podcast, a resource for dietetic and nutrition students looking for answers that their peers don't have.
We are students Macy and Emily and registered dietitian Carl Barnes. We engage in conversations and learn from RDs.
Join us weekly as we gain insight into the unique journeys of registered dietitians all over the country.
Welcome back to another week of the RD2B podcast. I'm your registered dietitian host, Carl Barnes. This is our podcast where each week we sit down with a different registered dietitian to not just highlight their career path, but specifically to give advice to RD2Bs, no matter where you are on your journey. The real goal of this is to obviously to get you exposure to different paths in the dietetic profession, but to really highlight that there is no such thing as a traditional path. So on that note, this week we're joined by a registered dietitian who's in a career path that a lot of students may not realize is a thing. So we're joined by Megan Lautz, and she works in a field in a county position here in Maryland with public safety personnel. So I'll let her introduce herself. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, my name is Megan Lautz. I am a registered dietitian and certified personal trainer, and I primarily work with public safety personnel in Montgomery County, Maryland. I've also started an LLC called Rescue RD, which focuses on first responders, so police, firefighters, correctional officers, 911 call or dispatch. And I mostly spend my time, my days working either in the stations or going out to the academy, or, doing some virtual Zoom stuff, especially now that COVID's kind of in full, well, it's coming down, but it's still in full swing from our standpoint.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here today, Megan. I appreciate it. So we'll go into the questions. So would you briefly describe what you do for your job as a nutrition and risk prevention manager?
Sure. So I was basically hired by the occupational medical clinic over in Montgomery County. So in occupational medical clinic, what they do is for certain jobs like police officers, firefighters, correctional officers, bus operators, any job that requires a physical or like a certain fitness for duty, we actually provide that on site. Not all counties do that. We are a larger county just outside of DC. So that's why we have an occupational medical clinic. And what they were looking for was a program manager, or essentially a wellness program manager, to come in and, work with those public safety personnel to help reduce workers' compensation and possibly also any health insurance claims. And so I came in and, I had some experience as a wellness coordinator in the past. I had worked at Northrop Grumman. And so I was kind of looking for wellness jobs. It's not really the traditional path of a dietitian, but, I went for it. It does help being a trainer and a dietitian because you can kind of hit both things. You can go do a workout, or you could go talk about nutrition and that kind of stuff. So so as a nutrition and risk prevention manager, we actually had to change the title because there was an internal wellness program, which was with a wellness manager and another wellness coordinator. And then there was me. And when you have two wellness program managers, it makes for a lot of confusion from the employee standpoint. So we kind of changed my title a little bit. Really what it is just a wellness program manager for public safety. So, in terms of my role in a non-COVID time, I would be doing anything from going to stations and providing workouts, or doing a healthy lunch, healthy dinner. I would be going to recruit classes in the morning and doing in-services for hydration and quick snacks and ways to eat when you're getting your butt handed to you at an academy. I would be doing in-services for police. I might end up in Montgomery County, we have liquor control. So they have all the alcohol in the county goes to a warehouse first, and there's a lot of injury there. So we added a warm up. It's kind of all over the place. It's not a traditional RD role, but I'm not a traditional RD by any standpoint.
Awesome. And then I also saw that you are a dietetic internship coordinator at the University of Maryland. So would you mind touching on that as well?
Yes. So this is my first year as a dietetic internship coordinator. It's a part-time role. I work under Phyllis McShane with the University of Maryland College Park. And basically, I kind of help teach and coordinate the internship. We have at least once a month a class day on technology. Our emphasis is communications and technology or in informatics. And basically informatics is, how does technology, involve in a dietetic career? So that could be electronic healthcare records. It could be social media. It could be blogs. It can be basically any aspect of technology that is woven into the field of dietetics, or how we use data and information in the field of dietetics. My wheelhouse is more graphic design, social media, food photography. We have another coordinator, Lorraine, who does primarily writing, scripts, blogs, professional writing, that kind of thing. And then we also have Kathleen Pelletier, who is the informatics chair actually of the DPG group for nutrition and informatics. So yeah, we have a great team.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a well-developed team over there. So how did you get into the, nutrition education, coaching, personal training for the firefighters, police officers, and other safety personnel?
Sure. Yeah. And I really fell into it. I think people want me to say I've always done this, and really that's not the case. I came out of my dietetic internship actually at the University of Maryland College Park, and I didn't really want to do clinical. I know I was really pushed to do it. And I got so lucky, right after I graduated, that a role opened up as a wellness program coordinator for interactive health at Northrop Grumman. And I was so excited. It was my dream job. And I was there for about a year, and boom, the contract fell through. We were all laid off. And so I went and I sat behind a desk for almost a year selling biometric screenings. And one of the managers from that earlier position had a role come up for the wellness program manager in Rockville. And I had no idea what the role was for. They just said, hey, you're going to be the wellness manager for public safety. And I said, all right, it's not behind a desk. So we'll see what happens. And, fire really took well to me. The chiefs and the wellness, firefighters who work primarily in fitness really took well to me, and they showed me everything. And I've spent a lot of my time focusing on firefighters, but it's a little bit of a slower go with police and some of the other groups, just from political standpoints and that kind of thing. So really, I kind of fell into it. It's just worked out really well because firefighters and police officers, they're tactical athletes. So they need a certain level of fitness to be able to do their job. So when you're a dietitian, that's all well and good, but if they're not fit, they might not be able to do their job. So there's absolutely a role for dietitians in police and fire. It's just not very well known, or really it's a very new part of the field.
Although this wasn't necessarily what you wanted to get into, like you said, you fell into this role. What things during your undergraduate degree, your dietetic internship, and your master's program really helped with what you're doing now?
Sure. So I went to James Madison University for my undergrad. And, if I was going to be honest, I really didn't love my classes. I was so close to just I had gotten my personal training certificate I think I was a sophomore going into junior year. And I just really fell in love with that. And I was this close to changing my major to kinesiology. But then I did it. And quite honestly, I'm very glad I did it. While the clinical and the food service and the community, that all gave me a really good background, and I still tap into that. it wasn't my thing. Like I didn't really love it. I got through it, did really well in school, but it wasn't my thing. And it was the same thing in the internship. I really, I was trying to do a bodybuilding competition in the middle of my internship, which is really one of the dumbest things that I think you could do, because now you're already tired. You're running around like crazy. I hadn't eaten like at any point, it was a lot. But I tried to do that during my internship, and then my master's I actually did after. So now with the commission recommending that all students have to have, after 2024, we have to have a master's. Honestly, it was my best decision to wait and do my master's. I got it paid for partially. I got $3,000 a year for my master's through my employer. I was able to do it online, so I could work a full-time and a part-time job. And that's really where that master's helps me a lot, because I was working in fire, and I could literally start applying the sports nutrition aspect, the human performance aspect, as I was learning it. So it was almost like I kind of had a built-in internship, but not necessarily, that unpaid way of going about it.
Yeah. Where did you do your master's?
My master's was online through Logan University. It's a chiropractic school based out of just outside St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say it's technically nutrition and human performance with a concentration in sports nutrition, but that's a mouthful, so we just shortened it.
Just Masters of Science. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
So I like that you touched on, that you got your master's because of what's going to go on in 2024. What made you want to do a Master's of Science opposed to an MPH or an MBA? Was it strictly because of your interest and your passion for sports? Or did you think you had more opportunities with a Master's of Science, or how did you go about that when navigating?
So I actually decided to get my master's like maybe 2 months after I was kind of sitting at that desk, and I'm looking for jobs. And I was basically told by, a wellness company that they weren't even going to consider me if I didn't have a master's, even though I had already had, a year of experience in wellness program management. So I was like, well, if that's the case, then I might as well get this master's, right? I need to do it now before we think about having kids or I get married and do all these other things. So I just went for it. Sports nutrition was something I really was interested in. I always had been, so that's kind of what I decided to do. I had no desire to have a business. Business still freaks me out. Now I have one. So, that wasn't really in the plan at that time. So really, I was just trying to get that sports nutrition background so that I could maybe go back into wellness, maybe go into sports nutrition. That's where I knew my niche was going to end up, but I still didn't know I was going to end up working with fire and police at all at that time.
So how do you find working in those environments that are so, in my opinion, male dominant? Do you fit well? Is it, a little hard since you're a woman telling these men, you got to eat healthy, you got to work out. So what does that environment look like for you?
That's actually a really good question, actually. So, I've always had the personality, in my opinion, of a personal trainer. If you've ever kind of met dietetics majors and met personal training kinesiology majors, there's a very clear type A, super OCD on the dietetic side, and then the trainers are kind of chill and relaxed. And it's like I have the OCD of a dietetics major, but I have the humor and sarcasticness of a trainer. And that's worked out really well for me. As a female, there's definitely some downsides to it, but at the same time, I really haven't had too much of a problem fitting in. And I think the real reason was I didn't come in to working with police and firefighters who are very type A personalities, very alpha, very dominant, very masculine, whether you're female or male, it's very masculine energy. And I didn't come in there and say, hey, I'm the expert, you better listen to me. Or, hey, you better, start eating vegetables. I came in and said, cool, you're going to let me go on the fire engine? oh, there's a fitness test. I wonder if I can pass that fitness test. So I took the CPAT and I passed it. It took me 2 or 3 times, but I showed that I was willing to train to pass that test. I did a 24-hour shift with one of the busiest stations in our county in Gaithersburg. And I looked like heck at the end of it. I almost fell asleep in the car on the way home. But, you need to be able to come down, and learn what they do and really understand the barriers that are involved with working 24-hour shifts, with working shifts that are so unpredictable that you don't know if you're going to have, a light call day, or if you're going to run a traumatic call like a shooting or a heart attack, or if you're going to run a fire related call and actually have to do some hard work. You don't know when those calls are going to drop. So eating is not something you can be super planned out about. So, for me, it was just really coming down and just asking a lot of questions, showing up, being there. And it really made such a big difference in how I was perceived in the department compared to just coming in and being like, hey, I'm the expert, come to me.
I really liked that you integrated yourself almost into their lives to see what they do and how, I knew I have a few friends that are EMTs and they do a 24-hour shift, but where they did it, it's like a quieter place.
Right.
So it's not, Montgomery County or Gaithersburg. But I don't think appreciate's the right word, but I'm going to use it. I appreciate that you did that. You stepped into their role. It's not like, okay, I need A, B, C, and D from you guys. You got into that situation. You're like, wow, this is hard. Passing this test is hard.
Yeah.
So that was really nice to hear.
Absolutely. And I can add to it's helped me as a female because so with fire and police, there's not a lot of females, right? But there's always a desire from recruitment to increase the amount of females for a diversity standpoint in the department. In a recruit class, typically, if we have 40 recruits, we might have between 0 and 4 females in that class. It's a very high intensity. You have to get through the test in 10 minutes and 20 seconds wearing a 50-pound weight vest. The first half is actually 75 pounds, 3 minutes on the stair mill. You take a hose, you run it around a barrel, you go in this maze, you crawl through a maze that goes up and down. You drag a 185-pound dummy, you lift ladders, you put up a ladder, you pull, extend the ladder, carry equipment. It's a huge obstacle course. It's not something where it's there are other, groups, tactical groups where it's just, oh, do some push-ups, do some crunches and a 1.5 mile run. It is not that. That's not terribly hard to pass. As a female coming in and wearing 75 pounds on your back, if you're 120, 130, 150 pounds, it's almost half your body weight, if not more. So it's, for me, it's been helpful because now that I've passed it, when I go to CPAT and I see a female struggling and a guy's telling her, oh, just pick the dummy up and, 185-pound dummy and hold it at your chest, I can be like, no, that's not going to be the best way probably for that person to be able to get through the dummy drag. They might need to use their legs more because women tend to be more, stronger in our legs typically. So it's helped me, really help the females who are coming in as recruits or even once they're incumbents, work towards, and I have really good rapport now, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Wow. Yeah. I really liked hearing that. Do you ever envision yourself working with maybe military personnel, or even professional teams or collegiate teams?
I have, and I know you've had people on the podcast before who've worked on H-2F contracts with the Army. They are expanding that from my understanding. I work with the NSCA a little bit, or at least I try to be very involved with the National Strength and Conditioning Association. I do have the Cssp, which is the basically tactical strength and conditioning facilitator. So I can kind of gear the training towards a tactical population. If I can stay in it, I want to stay with fire and police. And the reason for that is, if you look around, there's really no dietitians working in this field. You know, there's dietitians working in military. You see that with the H2F contracts. You see that from civilian side and also enlisted sides of the Army and the Navy. You see that there's obviously positions now for sports dietitians with sports teams. But if I leave this field, who's going to be there for the fire and police? So it's a niche that I really am trying to expand on. Today, I plan on setting up a YouTube channel with just quick tips on nutrition for my Rescue RD LLC. You know, I want to kind of really hone in on this niche because I know that there's a need for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, and I knew that you wanted us to plug that. So again, you can go on the website at rescuerd.com, or you can follow her Instagram at rescue.rd, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Rescue RD or something like that. Rescue.
Yeah, I think it's at rescue.rd. Yeah, so I kind of want to go back to your master's if that's okay with you.
Sure,
So
yeah.
what do you think are the benefits of doing, sorry for my dog, the benefits of doing an online master's program and an in-person master's program?
Sure. Well, I think it first starts off with who you are as a studier and who you are as a person. I've always been a very highly motivated person, you know, A's and B's. I've never gotten a C, OCD to the max. So, you know, an online program was fine for me because I was motivated. Now, an online program for my husband, who's very type B, and I would have to tell him to get online every day, maybe not so much. So for me, an online master's, I worked a full-time job, started my full-time job with the firefighters. I worked part-time at Core Life in weight management. I was getting married. I bought a house, and I did all of that in, I want to say, 18 months. So yeah,
busy woman.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, but the thing is, it's like when you finally get to a degree where you're interested in the topic and you're able to apply it immediately, there's a difference. And a lot of it's like, at least when I was with Logan, it was a lot of reading papers. So like reading, you know, like the ISSN position stands and like all of the CSSD position stands on like disordered eating and sports nutrition or macronutrients. It was all stuff that was relevant and interesting. So I should have been reading it anyway. We're just paying for it now.
Yeah. So how did you go about having the company you were working for help pay with your school?
Oh, so I work, I should clarify this. So I'm a contractor for Montgomery County government. Inova, the like big hospital center out in Virginia, they have the contract for the Ahmed Clinic. So because I'm a Inova employee, it's such a large employer. They, once you're with a company for a year or at least 6 months, you're eligible for their education, you know, reimbursement. So I would pay for my trimester, and then once I completed it, turned in everything, they would give me $3,000 back.
Wow, that's nice.
So to clarify, you know, when Phyllis was going through her master's years ago, they paid it in full. I don't think you're going to find a company now that's going to pay for your master's in full. But if you can get away with it, and, you know, I think I paid $18,000 for my master's in total. To get $6,000 of that taken off was big. And I will add that, you know, I was lucky to live at home for most of that master's, or, you know, I didn't have rent. So I just paid it out in full. You know, I didn't have loans for it. So that was a little extreme, but, you know,
yeah,
you said I'm dead.
Yeah, especially in like what's going on now, like people can be hundreds of $1,000s in debt just from undergrad, and that's not even if they want to do a master's or even if they want to be a doctor and then have to sit through residency and stuff like that.
Well, and I think to add to that, you know, from the dietetic internship hat, you know, everybody's pushing, you know, our students now, get that master's, just get it over with. If you're going to be grandfathered in, don't get it over with. Go to a program and just get your internship done, get out in the field and see if they'll pay for it. or if you don't know what you want to do and you're just getting a master's to get a master's, why would you do that when you could get in the field and decide, I don't want a clinical master's, or you can get in the field and maybe you want an MBA. It doesn't matter what type of master's you have. It could be in nutrition, it could be in sports nutrition, it could be in clinical, it could be in food service. It could be in informatics. Kathleen has a master's in informatics. The master should be a tool for you to really specialize as an RD, because it's cool to be a generalist RD and that's useful. But like, if you want a business down the line, or if you want to work in a very specific subset, you should be using that master's to get into that subset, if that makes sense. So
yeah, most definitely. So would you ever go back to potentially get an MBA knowing that you have a business of your own?
Probably not. I mean, like, I've already got 2 jobs and now a business.
All schooled out by now.
I'm pretty schooled out. Yeah, I don't really know if I would get an MBA. I'd probably would just get some certifications or get like a business coach or something like that. Really, at the end of the day, the only reason I have the business is to protect myself from a liability standpoint, because I'm a doomsdayer. But, I want to protect myself from a liability standpoint. But my real goal of this is I want to get nutrition information out from a qualified source to fire and police officers, because there's not really anybody out there tailoring it to that subset of the population. And you don't eat like a 9-to-5er when you work a 24-hour job. So, you've got to find ways to tailor it, or it's not going to be successful, is the moral of that story.
Would you ever consider getting your Cssp certification, or how are you planning on doing that, since you're working with not necessarily athletes, but athletes in their own way?
So I think what I would probably do first is actually get my CSCS, which is a certified strength and conditioning coach. And the reason that I was going to do it this year, and now I can't really decide if I'm going to do it or not. But the reason for that is there are more counties that are starting to realize the benefit of having a strength and conditioning coach within their department. So it would open more doors for me from a job standpoint if I was able to be a strength and conditioning coach. Right now, like, when you're a fire department and you have X amount of dollars and you can maybe only hire one person, are you going to hire a physical therapist, an athletic trainer, a dietitian, or a strength and conditioning coach? And quite honestly, you're going to be able to show more workers' comp, like return on investment, from the physical therapist, athletic trainer, or strength coach subset. For me as a dietitian, there's just no one out there doing it. So I still haven't really figured out how to like prove my worth from a return on investment standpoint, other than saying, hey, I can get X amount of pounds off. I can help with cholesterol. I can help with blood pressure and those kinds of things. So the CSSD, like, it's something I wanted to do, but I mean, I don't really need more letters behind my name. And at that point, it would just be a letters behind my name.
Yeah, just some alphabet soup. People are trying to figure it out.
Like, I already have a master's in sports nutrition. To them, like, CSSD doesn't mean anything, Not that it's not important, and it's a great certification. And it could open doors from the military standpoint and that kind of thing. But right now, I don't need to pay for letters. I need to pay for, something that could make me even more well-rounded, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that CSCS, the strength and conditioning coach side of it, would round me out much better.
Yeah, I do. Like, I never thought about it that way, because I know a lot of people that I've talked to both on and off the podcast are like, yeah, I want to get that credential to set me apart from others. But I never really thought of doing something more like getting your master's of science could also be, I don't want to say an umbrella for that, but it already shows your higher knowledge of a topic. But
yeah, and to add to that, like, so, I know a dietitian in sports nutrition. She's actually a firefighter who is now the Mets dietitian, Maureen Stockline. And to her, if you get the CSCS certain teams will let you sit in the dugout. Certain teams will allow you down on the field because now you're considered like a strength coach. So that certification allows you to get down in the nitty gritty and actually be on the field with your athletes. So yeah, the CSSD might actually open the door, and some like sports nutrition jobs will require it or strongly suggest it. But the CSCS might actually slightly open more doors once you're in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'd rather have a door open for the dugout than a door
Yeah.
open to the building. I feel
Oh
like
yeah, they don't listen to you really all that much. And like once you're like, whether it's athletes or tactical athletes, like if you're not in the trenches with them, they're not paying attention to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's something I learned from having a few friends that are athletic trainers or studying to be athletic trainers. Like if you're not with them and you're just giving them advice and like wrapping them up and giving them ice baths, they don't respect you. They want, like, if you don't know what they go through on the field, you kind of don't really get to say anything off the field. Or at least that's the approach that I've seen. But if you ended up switching your career from dietetics to kinesiology, do you think you would be where you are now?
Oh, absolutely not. And I think I had it in the back of my head that like, I knew it wasn't a good switch. It was also a little too late for me. I was like, by the time I was considering it, I was like at the end of my junior year, which just wouldn't have made any sense. So if I had done that, I probably would have been a personal trainer working back to back to back to back to back to back clients, burnt out, exhausted, or I would have been a strength and conditioning coach making literally probably a third of my salary to wake up at the crack of dawn and just kind of be a minion. Because when you're starting out, like you're just like maybe you're not the head coach most of the time. You're like one of the lower coaches. So you've got to put in like work, like hard work. Whereas as a dietitian, I feel like I get a little bit more respect that way, if that makes any sense. Because I've already been a trainer and a dietitian, it kind of gives me these two roads. And to be honest, like if you're looking at tactical, you're looking at sports nutrition and you're thinking, maybe should I get a personal training certification? I say, absolutely. Go through NASM or the NSCA. Actually, I'd probably push the NSCA now a little bit more, but get that certification, be a personal trainer and do it on the side. You can pick up a couple clients while you're in your internship. I worked as a trainer during my internship. I would work 5 hours on weekends and a handful of clients during the week. And, it's better to, in my opinion, be a trainer that way as like a filler rather than kill yourself over it and burn out pretty quickly at the beginning of your career. Not that happens for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate all of this great information that you've shared with us today. I do appreciate you taking out time to talk with us, especially because, you do have a crazy schedule, I'm sure, with firefighters and all those personal and those safety personnel not working regular shifts. So I greatly appreciate it. And I know the people that are listening appreciate it as well.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
You too.